Hey everybody, welcome to week 5 of the marketing bootcamp. And I'm just been every single week. I just get more and more excited for the stuff that I get to share with you each week. And this week is a fun week. This is going to be kind of a shorter one. There's not tons to say here, but it's an important concept that you have to really, really get a hold of. And I really, really love it because you can just have so much fun with this piece of the whole marketing funnel that you guys put together. Before we get into it, actually, we're going to talk about hooks and headlines, right? We're going to talk about how to create hooks that drive people into your story this week. Before we get into it, though, I just want to recap real quick. We talked about last week how to tell a story that will sell your product. So we talked about these, I think, 8 things here. You've first talked about the character, which is your customer. He is the character. He has a problem, and we define that problem on 3 different levels, right? We define it on the external level, on the internal level, on the philosophical level. And that meets a guide, which is you. You are the guide that can help them solve their problem. You give them a plan and you tell them how to get started. How do we get through this plan? And then we show the success that it looks like and the failure that that customer avoided. We take them through this journey and selling them our product. And then we talk about the character transformation and everything that they learned along the way. So it was a really, really fun week. We had a lot to talk about. I had some extra stuff for you to take a look at for this week. So hopefully you get a chance to do all that and look at those things. So now we're going to build on that because we could keep going back, right, as we look at everything that we've done, right? We can have a great offer. We can build an amazing vehicle that will sell that offer. And we can even tell the perfect story that would get people so excited to buy your product or your service or whatever it is that you're trying to sell. But if we can't get them in, if we can't interrupt their behavior, interrupt them enough to get them in, it does us no good. So this part, every part is super important. This is the beginning. This is the start. This is the hook and the headline. We've got to get them in to our story or it does us no good. So today we're going to talk about a couple different things. I'm going to talk about what fishing taught me about hooks, the art of the hook, and don't stop creating. This is the funnest part. I love it. You guys will get really excited about this. So let me dig in real quick. First thing I want to talk about what fishing taught me about hooks. All right. So I am kind of an oddball. I'm not a true Montanan, I would say, because I do not fish, I do not hunt, and I don't like football. So when I go to church during the fall, I pretty much have nobody to talk to because I don't do any of those things. And that's all the conversation is about hunting, fishing, and football for the most part. And I never can get a part of that conversation. So I got tired of it one time and I said, you know what? I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to try to get involved in something so I can feel like a Montanan, right? I even grew up in Minnesota where we have over 10,000 lakes. I still just never, ever went fishing. So I decided, let's go out and let's do this. And so this is the first time I've probably been fishing since I was at least a teenager. And so I went out with a friend of mine and we went out to Wolf Creek and decided to go fishing. Okay. So I went out there with him and he showed me some bait. He showed me some things that how to do it, how to hook everything. And, taught me some things about it, some basics about fishing, stuff I didn't know a lot about. And he's like, it's really easy, right? And so I go out there and I start fishing. I start throwing my line, getting the fish out there, doing the things that he says. And guess what? Nothing bit. Hour after hour after hour, I caught nothing. Do you know what happened with him? Fish after fish after fish. He must have caught 30 fish during the time that we fished. I could not catch anything. And when I watched him, he did things differently than me. He walked in very, very slowly into the lake where there's a group of fish, and he was more quiet. He learned that you don't want to scare away the fish. So he made sure that he didn't scare away the fish. He had the right type of bait. And when he threw that line, he knew where they were biting, how to throw it, how to move it. And he just knew all of those little tips to get those fish to bite. And to get there, I asked him, I said, man, how are you so good at this? How are you catching so many things? And you know what he said to me? He said, trial and error, my friend, trial and error. He's been doing it since he was a kid. And he's tried so many different things. He tried so many different baits, so many different ways. He's tried everything until he found what works the best on what type of fish at what time of year. He learned it all by just trying different things and learning more and more about what he's catching and how to catch them. And so that made me think about hooks. That made me think about marketing, which is kind of weird. How do I make that? That shows you how obsessed I am about marketing. We're out fishing and I relate this to marketing. But it's the same way, is we have to create a hook that's going to grab our audience. We have to interrupt their behavior enough to get them to bite and come into our story. It's not easy this day and age. There's so many things going on right now. People's attention is going 1,000 miles an hour. We have to be able to catch them at the right time, get them to stop whatever it is they're doing, reading Facebook, getting on Twitter, working on a presentation, whatever it is. We have got to get them to stop and pay attention to us, right? We have to create, and we've got to make it look like almost like a purple cow, right? There's a book written by Seth Godin called The Purple Cow. I don't know if this is quite the same analogy that he used, but it still works. He talks about this idea that if you were driving down the country, into the country, and you saw all of these cows, just like you see in Montana, right? You see all these cows everywhere you go, but then one day you look over and there's just one cow that's purple. What are you going to do? You're going to stop. You're going to, wherever you're going, I don't care if you're going to a wedding or to a funeral, I don't care where you're going. If you saw a purple cow, you are going to stop and take a picture of that cow. That's what we need to do. Easier said than done, but that is the importance of the hook and finding the right type of hook that's going to do that for you. So that's what fishing taught me about hooks. So now let's take a minute here. Let's talk about the art of the hook. Okay, so there's three things we want to look at. We want to create hooks from our story. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Second, we want to grab their attention. And third, we want to make a shocking statement. This picture, I really like this picture, because I did this on purpose because I wanted to see what made it stand out. So I went to Google and I just typed in, fishing. I forget exactly what I wrote in there, but something like, catching fish. And I looked at the images and I decided to grab the one image after looking at it for less than 5 seconds. What image grabbed my attention first? And that was the image I was going to use. This is the image I grabbed it. Right now, look at a couple of things about this image that grabbed my attention. Number one, the giant fish, right? That's the first thing you look at. Holy cow, that's a huge fish. The second thing you look at is there's a little girl who caught that fish. That's shocking. That's pretty amazing. I want to read that story. I want to read how this little girl caught this gigantic fish and what that looks like. What is the story behind this picture, right? So this picture is an example. Now, this is just a picture. You can use words, pictures, videos, whatever it is, something very, very quick to tell a very, very short story just to get people in to it. So that's what a hook is going to do. Now, one thing I want to emphasize here, because a lot of businesses make this type of mistake. A hook. So when you use a hook for whether it's an email headline or whether it's in an ad or a Facebook ad or TV or billboard or whatever it is, the hook is not, the purpose of the hook is not to sell your product. Once again, the hook is not to sell your product. It is not to explain your product. It is not to do any of that stuff. A hook is simply designed to drive curiosity, to take our attention away from what we're doing and cause us to research further of what that is. And that's for our target market, our dream customer. We want to stop our dream customer in their tracks so they take the next step and move into our story, move into our offer, and go through our funnel. So that's what the hook is created to do. Do not try to sell your product as a hook. It's not going to work. I have learned the hard way not to do that. So creating hooks. How do you create hooks? Well, the first thing you do after you create your story, I'm going to jump back real quick. Let's go back to that one slide here. Let's go back a couple of them, right? So once you create your story, once you know who your character is, you define the problem, you kind of go through your plan. what you can do is you can pull from each part of the story and create a hook through that story, right? So like if you talk about a problem, let's go back last week we were talking about a landscaper who was selling lawn fertilizer to make their lawn green, right? So the problem is we can look at the problem, right? We had the internal, the external problem, and we could say how, like we can make a hook that says how to make your neighbors jealous with the greenest grass on. Let me say that again. I lost my train of thought. But we can make a hook that says, if we look at the internal, right? Let me take one step back, explain it. So when we talked about internal, we talked about the person there. The reason that they don't want their grass to be yellow is because all of their neighbors have green grass. So they feel like inferior to their neighbors, like they don't take care of they don't take their lawn, do they take care of their house? You know, it's kind of a pride thing, but it doesn't make them feel good to have yellow grass because of how it makes them look. So you could take that and make a hook that says, how to make your neighbors jealous with your green lawn without spending thousands of dollars on products, right? Something like that. You can just create an easy hook through the problem. You can look at give them a plan. Start, you look at that part of like A, do this, and B, do that, right? How to get green grass in just 2 simple steps that will make put them together, right? That will make your neighbors jealous. Something crazy like that. How to get your grass green in just 1 day, different things. So you could take from your story, when you talk about ends in success, what that looks like, helps them avoid failure, what that failure looks like. You can pull hooks out of each and every piece of the story and use that to drive them into the story. So that is one way to create this. So let's go back out. Let's go back to what we're talking about, okay? So we create hooks. We can pull them from the stories. We can pull them from our own lives and experience. That's another way to create hooks. If you are selling a product, we didn't really talk a lot about this, but a really, really good practice is to think about what got you excited. Why did you create, if it's a new product or service that you created, why did you create that? What got you excited about it? What got you thinking about it? What got you to do it? Maybe the business that you bought. Why did you buy that business? What was like the aha moment that says, hey, people need this and I want to sell this? And then you can pull hooks from your own story. As you kind of write out your story, you can start create hooks from there. So we create hooks from our story, from why we do what we do, from the story we created, from how we built, from what we want to sell, those type of things. We want to create hooks from that. So hooks, they grab your attention. That's what we got to do. We talked about this, right? We want to be able to grab their attention. We got to interrupt what they are doing to take a look at what we have so they click on it. That is the main idea of doing that. And the last part is we want to create a shocking statement. So for me, not only is the fish huge, which is shocking, but the more, to me, to this picture, the story that this tells is it's a little girl. This little girl caught this fish. That is pretty shocking and unbelievable. What is the story behind that, right? So we want to do a shocking statement. So I wrote in here, a shocking statement goes against something that your customer holds true or exposes something that they suspect. Excuse me, I gotta take a drink of water here. Sorry, let me try that again. A shocking statement goes against something that your customer holds true or exposes something they suspect is true. Have you ever had a time in your life where somebody told you something or something happened and you looked at it and say, something isn't right about that? Something just doesn't add up. And you were very suspicious about it. And you were like, that can't quite be true. There's got to be something there's something to the story that we don't know. You kind of have that suspicion about something. And then later on, you find out that your suspicion was correct. And you say, you're like, I knew it. I knew that there is no way. I knew that there had to be something else, right? We've all had that experience. When we write hooks, if we can put something in our hook of what our audience holds to be true, maybe a false belief, something that they know that they've heard that's true, but they believe that there's got to be they have some suspicion. If you can create a hook that alleviates that and that says, I knew it, I knew that wasn't true, you'll be able to bring them in. So let me give you a few examples here of some really, really good hooks that you can use that create a shocking statement that kind of build, that build that suspicion and get people interested. You want, like this picture here of this girl, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone to go, what? That can't be true, and click on it. Right now, there's an art to this. This is all, like, I love this part because it is an art to be able to do this, because everybody has to do it a little bit different. And there's a fine line. But let me share with you some examples, and then I'll share with you kind of a fine line that you have to be careful of, some do's and don'ts. But here's some examples, right? How I used a simple hack to go from bankrupt and living in a trailer to become a successful real estate investor, right? So this one here that I put out there, he talks about something that's simple to go from bankrupt into a real estate investor. That's kind of shocking. How do you go from really, really poor to really, so kind of having those two different very, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but two different ends of the spectrum there, how you went from dirt poor to rich with one simple trick. Gets people excited. A rookie realtor takes 52 listings first year in the business using this 15th century discovery. So that's kind of shocking. 15th century, what are you talking about 15th century? How do I get this? So they put what they want to sell. They want to, we know we're talking about real estate and realtors, basically, is what I'm going to say, and how they got this successful thing. What's this 15th century discovery? What does that mean? What in the world is that? It makes you click on it and get you into the story. Now, you have to have a story to back it up. We'll talk about that in a second. Ex-pizza delivery guy shows you a weird trick to become a best-selling author in a weekend. That one, I want to talk about that one in a second. I like that one, but I don't like that one for a couple different reasons, unless you have something that can back it up. The next one, meet Bob. Bob used a 1,600-year-old secret to save his marriage, and we'll show you how. A former janitor goes from bankrupt to paid-off house in 18 months with profits from his ebook business. A part-time chicken rancher loses 30 pounds in 2 months thanks to an unlikely combo of Oprah Winfrey and a former U.S. Navy SEAL. So these are all hooks that are used to get people to say, what are you talking about? And really, really good hooks grab their attention and make a shocking statement. Now, one thing I want to mention here, there is a fine line, because if you say something that's a little bit too shocking, you don't want to set off your customer's BS meter. So going to ex-pizza delivery guy shows you a weird trick to become a best-selling author in a weekend, right? That you may not want to take it too far. To me, that one might be a little bit too far, because you're like, you can't become a best-selling author in a weekend. That seems a little crazy. Now, you might have something to back that up, and if you really, really can back that up, that's fine. You can use it, but don't use one that's saying too much when you can't back it up, right? That makes sense. I think that's obvious, but there is an art to this, and try not to go too far. If you saw a headline that says, how I made $3 million in a weekend with just a $1 investment, that would get people excited. That's really shocking. But then the BS meter goes off and they're like, no, that's not real. And there's no way that you could back that up. So unless you can really, really back up what you say, you really want to focus on creating that shock and awe, but not going too far with it. So there is definitely a middle ground that you've got to find when you're creating. Now, a lot of good ways to do hooks to get started is to use how to, right? Say, hey, how to do this, how to do that, and use a second part that says without something or other. So how to get the thing that you want most without the biggest fear that you have. Those are things. Now, there's at the end of this, when you guys check this, underneath this video, there's going to be a link to a guy named Jim Edwards, a guy that I read a lot about on copywriting. He has a short video there talking about hooks and headlines and how to write them. So after this, you can watch that, give you a little bit better idea of what that looks like. So you want to create your hook from your story, telling your own story, or from the story that you created that you want your customers to go down, grab their attention, and create a shocking statement. Now, here's where I love about this. This is where I stop. I think of the song, Don't Stop Believing, right? I think about don't stop creating. Here is what we have that we've never had before over the last 20 years. This is what internet has done for us, and it makes it so amazing. We can eliminate, well, no, let's not eliminate the guesswork. We can use the guesswork quickly and efficiently to find out what works. I love this. I use what's called the comedian approach, okay? When you are creating headlines driving people, there is no shortage of headlines that you can use. You can brainstorm and use literally hundreds of different headlines. You can create tons of different ads, and you can test to see what works the best. So when I talk about the comedian approach, this is my favorite comedian, of course, Jerry Seinfeld. He's amazing. I love that show. One of my all-time favorites. Listen to him all the time. He's great. But guess what? Jerry Seinfeld gets out there and he kills it. I'm in tears laughing so hard when I listen to him. But you know what? He doesn't just write out a comic routine, get up the next day, go on to TV or go into a club and start telling it and just nail it, right? Even Jerry Seinfeld, one of the best comedians in the world, practices. And so what they do, and you guys may or may not be familiar with this, I read about this a couple years ago, and it was obvious, but I never really thought about it. What they do is they go into a club with their routine, and they write all these jokes up, and they pay attention, and they practice with small clubs to find out what works and what doesn't, what jokes hit and what jokes don't. The first time they get up there, they may have 20% of the jokes that work, 80% of them don't work at all. So they rewrite the 80% and they keep that 20% and they do it again. And the next time they might get another 20% that work on top of that. So now they have 40% that works and another 60% that doesn't. So they get rid of those jokes and they write new jokes. And they keep doing it until they eliminate all the bad jokes and they find enough jokes to last an hour, hour and a half, however long their special is, that's going to kill it. That's the same approach we got to take to marketing. We got to use hooks and headlines, use emails, use ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube, Instagram, all of those things. We got to use those to find out what works and try a bunch of different approaches as we lead people into our story and find out what most people respond to. Okay. And I do this with my clients. I usually when I run, I tell all my clients this, I'm going to tell you this. Usually when I start a campaign with a client, I fail right away. The first thing I do very rarely works because we got to try a few different things. And then I change it up. I do what's called the 100-person test, and I drive 100 people into it, and I see what is our conversion rate after those 100 people. Is it a high conversion rate? Is it low? Do we get nobody? I just recently did a campaign, 265 people ran into it, one response. It just didn't work. So I'm changing the headline right now. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to change the headline and try something different. We've got to always be, but that's the thing, we got to keep on creating, keep on working, and put headline after headline after headline, run it. Some people, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're using Facebook, if you're using Google, some people set up 31 different headlines and they run one a day for 31 days and find out which one works the best. And then the next month they run that one. They put like $10 a day to it or $50 a day, whatever they're going to spend to it. And they see which one works the best. If you have time to do that, great. There is a book out there called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, one of my favorite books out there. But what he said is that I think he had 4 or 6 different titles. And so what he did is he created an ad with the title on there of each of the title, and he sent them out. Now, when people clicked on it, it sent them to page not found because he wasn't trying to sell anything. He just wanted to find out which title would work the best. So for 1 month, he ran, or forever, I don't know how long, a month or a week or however long he ran it, but he ran an ad with all 4 of them, all those titles, and the winner was 4-Hour Workweek by a landslide. So he asked his audience, what do they want? And you can do that with headlines. You can do that with hooks. You can do that with offers as well. So I'll take this one bit further. You can also do that with your offer. So if you create offers, sometimes you can create 3 or 4 offers, create more of those irresistible offers, and you can test them and see which ones get responded to the most, and then you run with that offer. So it's a lot of testing, A/B testing, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. That's why I have so much fun with hooks and headlines, because you can just play around. There's no wrong answer. And that's a great, great feeling. You can do whatever you want. You can throw it out there, and you can let your audience tell you what works and what doesn't. So hooks and headlines, that is a super important part, and you can have a ton of fun of it. Hey, to get more detail, watch the Jim Edwards a video below this to talk about kind of how to think about that, how to write headlines without taking thousands of hours to build one, creating several headlines, and just have a ton of fun with it. So like always, I am available. All right, you can call me, you can email me, you can schedule a meeting with me. If you get to this point or any point before this and you get stuck, you need help, contact me. We'll set up a meeting. I'll help you through it. I'll help you build your offer. I'll help you build your first funnel. I'll help you work on all of this, creating a campaign that actually works, that's trackable and scalable for your business. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. This one was a little bit shorter, but I think you'll like that. So I appreciate your time. I hope to talk to you soon. All right. Thanks.